Hello, and thank you for coming to my presentation. I'm gonna be talking about mayflies, hurricanes, and tropical streams. Disturbance is a major factor in stream ecology. It's always been recognized as an important component of stream dynamics. Even back in 1998, when we were the North American Bentological Society, Resch and collaborators published this summary or review of the role of disturbance in stream ecology. Here in this graph, we can see disturbance as discharge and whether it is actually a disturbance or not, depending on the timing of the year. So in general, we always recognize disturbance as a key player in stream ecology. For the Atlantic and the Caribbean, hurricanes are also a major type of disturbance. Here we can see the 2021 hurricane season, and you can see all the different storm tracks crisscrossing the region. And the other graph is basically a summary of hurricane paths over time. The region and streams in this region are affected by hurricanes on a regular basis, but not all of them are major impacts. When there is a major impact, streams are then impacted by flooding and also by disturbance in the riparian zone and all the changes associated with the hurricane impact. For Puerto Rico, where our study took place, the last major hurricane was Maria in 2017. You can see in this figure at the bottom, Maria is this huge storm, and Puerto Rico is here outlined. So it is a major disturbance, a major system, much larger than the island. And here you see the path in the other diagram showing how Maria approached Puerto Rico as a Category 5 hurricane. Then it changed into Category 4, crossed the island from one end to the other, and basically affected everybody and everything on the island. For stream ecosystems, hurricanes have two main impacts. There's the flooding that occurs because of all the precipitation during the storm. And there's also the wind damage that disturbs the riparian vegetation and removes basically all the canopy over the stream channel, like in the picture here for El Verde Field Station in Puerto Rico. So we were working in Puerto Rico since before the hurricane, so we have data from before the storm and after the storm. And today I want to share the the effects of the hurricane on mayfly assemblages in Puerto Rico. So we're going to be focusing on adults emerging from the stream and also on the nymphs that are living in the benthic environment. Again, Puerto Rico is in the middle of the Caribbean. It's the smallest, I guess, of the larger islands. In Puerto Rico, we're working in the Luquillo Experimental Forest in the northeast part of Puerto Rico. For those of you familiar with Puerto Rico, here's the San Juan metropolitan area. So we are like a 40 minutes drive from San Juan. In the mountains, we're working in Quebrada Prieta. Prieta, it has two main tributaries, and those are basically our long-term study sites. Prieta is dominated by boulders, like in this picture. So pools, a lot of boulders, not many riffles, but several drops. So pools are basically the dominant habitat. The riparian vegetation is primary forest, and discharge is very variable here because it's a rainy part of the island, and the slope is also very steep. So whenever it rains, you get a flood. Now, this is the what happened with Prieta due to the hurricane. Here we have months and years in the horizontal axis and percent canopy cover in the vertical axis. You see before the hurricane, there is this line here. Canopy cover was around 90%, so the stream was really shaded, like in the picture here. You see light gaps and some sunny areas, but the canopy cover was around 90%. Then the hurricane hit, and suddenly the canopy was gone. A lot of sunlight reaching the stream bottom, and the riparian vegetation recovered slowly over time. By 2020, that's how it looks, and still is not completely recovered to pre-hurricane levels. So we sampled mayflies. We started sampling mayflies at the beginning of 2017, collecting monthly samples for benthic nymphs and also the emerging adults using these emergent straps here in the picture. For today, for this presentation, I'm going to be presenting 2017 and 2018 data, but this is a long-term data set, so we are still working on some of the samples. Now let me tell you about the mayfly assemblages in Puerto Rico. We're talking about an oceanic island, so diversity is low. It is a tropical location, but not very diverse because it is an island. So in Prieta, we only have two families of mayflies. We have leptophlebids, two main genera, Borinquena, which is has only one species, Borinquena carmencita, and then Neuhagenulus that has Neuhagenulus julio as the dominant species. There's a second species that is not very abundant, and then Beitiri has Cloiodes, a couple of species of Cloiodes that are present. And here you can see Neuhagenulus in the picture and Cloiodes in the bottom picture. So two species of leptophlebids and one genus of Beitiri. Now in this figure I'm showing the summary of the before and after hurricane impacts. The graph at the top is for the nymphs and the graph at the bottom for emerging adults. And we have in the horizontal axis the genera, so Borinquena, Neuhagenulus, and Cloiodes. The gray bar is before the hurricane, and you can see clearly that both leptophlebids decrease in abundance as nymph from before the hurricane to after the hurricane. We find this leptophlebids mostly associated with leaf litter. So we think that this is because of the change in the decrease in leaf litter that occurs due to the hurricane removing riparian vegetation. Cloiodes, in contrast, increase quite a bit after the hurricane as nymphs, and also the same pattern is shown as adults. So you can see that Borinquena is not that abundant, but Neuhagenulus did decrease. Emerging adults decrease after the hurricane, and Cloiodes increase after the hurricane. So different responses for these two families of mayflies. Now let's look at this over time. These are our monthly samples from January 2017 to December 2018. The black line is for the nymphs, and the blue line is for the emerging adults. Again, the hurricane is here as this line in September 2017. This is Borinquena, so you can see that there's I guess Borinquena was never very abundant, but there are a couple of peaks before the hurricane. Then after the hurricane, they kind of linger for some time, but then the population basically collapses, and it didn't recover until the end of 2018 when we start seeing an increase. Same happens with Neuhagenulus, the other leptophlebid. They are way more abundant, more dominant in the stream, so they were very abundant before the hurricane. They continue to be abundant a couple of months after the hurricane, but then decrease quite a bit and remain low in low abundances after the hurricane. And Cloiodes showing the opposite pattern. So Cloiodes was fairly rare in the stream, and after the hurricane, with some time lag, we start seeing an increase in both emerging adults and nymphs, and they reach high abundances like a year after the hurricane or so. So quick summary. When we had the hurricane, the assemblage dominance changed, and we think that is related to these big changes in the environment. Basically, the decrease in leaf litter affected mostly leptophlebits, and then the increase in sunlight appeared to be affecting or benefiting babies. So those are two big changes, but one thing that we need to keep in mind is that the hurricane affected the entire ecosystem, riparian and stream ecosystem. So there are many pieces, I guess, that change due to the hurricane. Here I'm showing the nymph density for the three genera versus canopy cover in the horizontal axis. And you can see that there isn't much of a pattern. There are two groups basically. In black, we have pre-hurricane canopy always being high, and then in orange, post-hurricane being low canopy. And not much of a pattern with nymph density. If we look at the nymphs again, but leaf litter inputs, there's a little bit of a trend, but not much. You also see pre-hurricane in black and post-hurricane in orange, and there's like an increase, but a lot of variability. So trying to get at this difference between, or this interaction between leaf litter inputs and the increase in sunlight, I came up, or I did this kind of quick index relating chlorophyll concentration versus leaf litter. So here I have a ratio between chlorophyll and leaf litter in the horizontal axis versus nymph density and emerging adults in the vertical axis. And there is more of a trend. You can see that there's a decrease in both leptophlebid mayflies. So basically, when you have more chlorophyll and less leaf litter, you get fewer of them. And the opposite pattern for cloiodes. So they tend to be more abundant when chlorophyll is more abundant. The relationships that are significant are the ones that have an R square in the corner. So the relationship is not that strong. So there is a trend. So we need to look at this more in detail and perhaps kind of dissect things a little more. This is kind of like a general pattern just to show you the trends. So in summary, our study shows that hurricanes have drastic impacts on the stream environment, and besides the flooding and the canopy defoliation, there are a lot of changes that have long-lasting impacts on the food web. And these impacts appear to be associated with resources. And this is a little worrisome because climate change models are projecting that hurricanes are going to become more frequent, in particular intense hurricanes. So if hurricanes hit the same place on a regular basis, then the food webs could be switching from leaf litter to algae, and the stream assemblages are going to be changing in composition and dominance as well. Thank you for listening to the presentation. I'll be happy to answer questions if I run into you guys in the meeting or via email.